2 Kings 22. Josiah was 8 years old when he became king, and he reigned 31 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Jediah, the daughter of Adiah. She was from Bozeketh. He did what was right in the Lord's sight, and walked in all the ways of his ancestor David. He did not turn to the right or the left. In the 18 years of King Josiah, the king sent the court security Shaphan, son of Azaliah, son of Meshullam, to the Lord's temple, saying, "Go up to the high priest Hilkiah, so that he may total up the silver brought into the Lord's temple, the silver the doorkeepers have collected from the people. It is to be given to those doing the work, those who oversee the Lord's temple. They in turn are to give it to the workmen in the Lord's temple to repair the damage. They are to give it to the carpenter, builders, and masons to buy timbers and quarried stone to repair the temple, but no accounting is to be required from them for the silver given to them, since they work with integrity. The high priest Hilkiah told the court security Shaphan, "I have found the book of the law in the temple, in the Lord's temple." And he gave the book to Shaphan, who read it. Then the court security Shaphan went to the king and reported, "Your servant have attempted out the silver that was found in the temple, and have given it to those doing the work, those who oversee the Lord's temple." Then the court security Shaphan told the king, "The priest Hilkiah has given me a book." And Shaphan read it in the presence of the king. When the king heard the words of the book of the law, he tore his clothes. Then he commanded the priest Hilkiah, Ahikam, son of Shaphan, Achbor, son of Micaiah, the court security Shaphan, and the king's servant Asaiah, "Go and inquire of the Lord for me, for the people, and for all Judah, about the word in this book that has been found. For great is the Lord's wrath, that is kind-led against us, because our ancestors have not obeyed the word of this book, in order to do everything written about it." So the priest Hilkiah, Ahikam, Achbor, Shaphan, and Asaiah went to the prophets went to the prophets, Hulbah, wife of Shallum, son of Tikvah, son of Haras, keeper of the wardrobe. She lived in Jerusalem in the second district. They spoke with her, and she said to them, "This is what the Lord God of Israel says. Say to the man who sent you to me, this is what the Lord says. I am about to bring disaster on the place and its inhabitants, fulfilling all the words of the book that the king of Judah has read, because they have abandoned me and burned incense to other gods in order to anger me with all the work of their hands. My wrath will be kindled against this place, and it will not be quenched. Say this to the king of Judah who sent you to inquire of the Lord. This is what the Lord God of Israel says. As for the words that you heard, because your heart was tender, and you humble yourself before the Lord, when you heard I spoke what I spoke against this place and against the its inhabitants, that they would become a delusion and a curse. And because you have torn your clothes and wept before me, I myself have heard. This is the Lord's declaration. Therefore I will indeed gather you to your ancestors, and you will be gathered to your grave in peace. Your eye will not see all the disaster that I am bringing on this place when they reported to the king."
2 Kings chapter 23. So the king sent messengers, and they gathered all the elders of Judah and Jerusalem to him. Then the king went to the Lord's temple with all the men of Judah and all the inhabitants of Jerusalem, as well as the priests and the prophets, all the people from the youngest to the oldest. He read in their hearing all the words of the books of the covenant that had been found in the Lord's temple. Next, the king stood by the pillar and made a covenant in the Lord's presence to follow the Lord and to keep his commands, his decrees, and his statutes with all his heart and with all his soul, in order to carry out the word of this covenant that were written in this book. All the people agreed to the covenant. Then the king commanded the high priest Hilkiah and the priests of the second rank and the doorkeepers to bring out the Lord's sanctuary, all the articles made for Baal, Asherah, and all the stars in the sky. He burned them outside of Jerusalem in the fields of the Kidron, and carried their ashes to Bethel. Then he did away with the idolatrous priests the king of Judah had appointed to burn incense at the high places in the city of Judah and in the areas surrounding Jerusalem. They had burned incense to Baal and to the sun, moon, constellations, and all the stars in the sky. He brought out the Asherah pole from the Lord's temple to the Kidron Valley outside of Jerusalem. He burned it at the Kidron Valley, beat it to dust, and threw its dust on the graves of the common people. He also tore down the house of the male cult prostitutes that were in the Lord's temple, in which the women were wearing tapestries for Asherah. Then Josiah brought all the priests from the city of Judah, and he defiled the high places from Geba to Beersheba, where the priests had burned incense, he tore down the high places of the city gates at the entrance of the gates of Joshua, the governor of the city, on the left at the city gates. The priests of the high places, however, did not come up to the altar of the Lord in Jerusalem. Instead, they ate unleavened bread with their fellow priests. He defiled Topheth, which is in Ben-Hinnom's valley, so that no one could sacrifice his son or daughter in the fire to Molech. He did away with the horses that the king of Judah had dedicated to the sun. They had been at the entrance of the Lord's temple in the precincts by the chamber of Nathan-Melech, the eunuch. He also burned the chariots of the sun. The king tore down the altars that the kings of Judah had made on the roof of Ahaz's upper chamber. He also tore down the altars that the Manasseh had made in the two courtyards of the Lord's temple. Then he smashed them there and threw their dust into the Kidron valley. The king also defiled the high places that were across from Jerusalem, to the south of Mount of Destruction, which King Solomon of Israel had built for Ashtoreth, the abhorrent idol of the Sidonians, for Chemosh, the abhorrent idol of Moab, and for Milcom, the detestable idol of the Ammonites. He broke the sacred pillars into pieces, cut down the Ashtaroth pole, then filled their place with human bones. He even tore down the altar at Bethel and the high places that had been made by Jeroboam, son of Nebat, who caused Israel to sin. He burned the high places, crushed it to dust, and burned the Ashtaroth. As Josiah turned, he saw the tombs there on the mountains. He sent someone to take the bones out of the tombs, and he burned them on the altars. He defiled it according to the word of the Lord proclaimed by the man of God, who proclaimed these things. Then he said, "What is this monument I see?" The men of the city told him, "It is the tomb of the man of God who came from Judah and proclaimed these things that you have done to the altar at Bethel." So he said, "Let him rest. Don't let anyone disturb his bones." So they left his bones undisturbed with the bones of the prophets who came from Samaria. Josiah also removed all the shrines of the highest places that were in the city of Samaria, which the king of Israel had made to anger the Lord. Josiah did the same thing to them that he had done at Bethel. He slaughtered on the altars all the priests of those high places, and he burned human bones on the altars. Then he returned to Jerusalem. The king commanded all the people, "Observe the Passover of the Lord your God as written in the book of the covenant." No such Passover had ever been observed in the time of the judges who judged Israel through the entire time of the kings of Israel and Judah. But in the 18th year of King Josiah, the Lord's Passover was observed in Jerusalem. In addition, Josiah eradicated the mediums, the spiritists, household idols, images, and all the abhorrent things that were seen in the land of Judah and in Jerusalem. He did this in order to carry out the words of the law that were written in the books that the priest Hilkiah found in the Lord's temple. Before him there was no king like him who turned to the Lord with all his heart, and with all his soul, and with all his strength, according to all the law of Moses, and no one like him arose after him. In spite of all that, the Lord did not turn from the fury of his intense burning anger, which burned against Judah because of all the affronts with which Manasseh had angered him. For the Lord had said, "I will also remove Judah from my presence, just as I have removed Israel. I will reject the city of Jerusalem that I have chosen, and the temple about which I said, my name will be there." The rest of the events of Josiah's reign, along with all his accomplishments, are written in the historical records of Judah's kings. During his reign, Pharaoh Necho, king of Egypt, marched up to help the king of Assyria at the Euphrates River. King Josiah went to confront him, and at Megiddo, when Necho saw him, he killed him. From Megiddo, his servants carried his dead body in the chariot, brought him into Jerusalem, and buried him in his own tomb. Then the common people took Jehoahaz, son of Josiah, anointed him, and made him king in the place of his father. Jehoahaz was 23 years old when he became king, and he reigned 3 months in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Hamutal, daughter of Jeremiah. She was from Libnah. He did what was evil in the Lord's sight, just as his ancestors had done. Pharaoh Necho imprisoned him at Riblah in the land of Hamath to keep him from reigning in Jerusalem. And he imposed on the land a fine of 7,500 pounds of silver and 75 pounds of gold. Then Pharaoh Necho made Eliakim, son of Josiah, king in place of his father Josiah, and changed Eliakim's name to Jehoiakim. But Necho took Jehoahaz and went to Egypt, and he died there. So Jehoiakim gave the silver and the gold to Pharaoh, but at Pharaoh's command he taxed the land to give it. He exacted the silver and the gold from the common people, each according to his assignment, to give it to Pharaoh Necho. Jehoiakim was 25 years old when he became king, and he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Zebidah, daughter of Pedaiah. She was from Rumah. He did what was evil in the land, in the Lord's sight, just as his ancestors had done.
2 Kings 24. During Jehoiakim's reign, King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon attacked. Jehoiakim became his vassal for 3 years, and then he turned and rebelled against him. The Lord sent Chaldean, Aramean, Moabites, and Ammonites raiders against Jehoiakim. He sent them against Judah to destroy it according to the word of the Lord. He had spoken through his servant, the prophets. Indeed, this happened to Judah at the Lord's command to remove them from his presence. It was because of the sins of Manasseh, according to all he had done, and all because of all the innocent blood he had shed. He had filled Jerusalem with innocent blood, and the Lord was not willing to forgive. The rest of the events of Jehoiakim's reign, along with all his accomplishments, are written in the historical records of Judah's kings. Jehoiakim rested with his ancestors, and his son Jehoiachin became king in his place. Now the king of Egypt did not march out of his land against, for the king of the Babylon took everything that had belonged to the king of Egypt, from the brook of Egypt to the Euphrates river. Jehoiachin was 18 years old when he became king, and he reigned 3 months in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Nehushta, daughter of Nathan. She was from Jerusalem. He did what was evil in the Lord's sight, just as his father had done. At that time, the servant of King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon marched up to Jerusalem, and the city came under siege. C-I-C-H. King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon came to the city while his servants were besieging it. King Jehoiachin of Judah, along with his mother, his servant, his commanders, and his officials, surrendered to the king of Babylon. So the king of Babylon took him captive in the eighth year of his reign. He also carried off from there all the treasuries of the Lord's temple and the treasuries of the king's palace, and he cut into pieces all the articles that King Solomon of Israel had made for the Lord's sanctuary, just as the Lord had predicted. He deported all Jerusalem and all the commanders and all the best soldiers, 10,000 captives, including all the craftsmen and metalsmith, except for the poorest people of the land. No one remained. Nebuchadnezzar deported Jehoiachin of Babylon. He took the king's mother, the king's wives, his officials, and the leading men of the land, and to exile from Jerusalem to Babylon. The king of Babylon brought captive into Babylon all the 7,000 of the best soldiers and 1,000 craftsmen and metalsmiths of all strong and fit for war. And the king of Babylon made Mattaniah, Jehoiachin, uncle, king of his place, and charged his name to Zedekiah. Zedekiah was 21 years old when he became king and he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Hamutal, daughter of Jeremiah. She was from Libnah. Zedekiah did what was evil in the Lord's sight, just as Jehoiakim had done. Because of the Lord's anger, it came to the point in Jerusalem and Judah that he finally banished them from his presence. Then Zedekiah rebelled against the king of Babylon.
In the 9th year of Zedekiah's reign, on the 10th day of the 10th month, King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon advanced against Jerusalem with his entire army. They laid siege to the city and built a siege wall against it all around. The city was under siege until King Zedekiah's 11th year. By the 9th day of the 4th month, the famine was so severe in the city that the common people had no food. Then the city was broken into, and all the warriors fled at night by way of the city gate between the two walls near the king's garden, even though the Chaldeans surrendered the city. As the king made his way along the route to the Arabah, the Chaldean army pursued him and overtook him in the plains of Jericho. Zedekiah's entire army left him and scattered. The Chaldeans seized the king and brought him up to the king of Babylon at Riblah, and they passed sentence on him. They slaughtered Zedekiah's son before his eyes. Finally, the king of Babylon blinded Zedekiah, bound him in bronze chains, and took him to Babylon. On the 7th day of the 5th month, which was the 19th year of King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon, the Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guards, a servant of the king of Babylon, entered Jerusalem. He burned the Lord's temple, the king's palace, and all the houses of Jerusalem. He burned down all the great houses. The whole Chaldean army, with the captain of the guards, tore down the walls surrounding Jerusalem. Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guards, deported the rest of the people who remained in the city, the deserters who had defected to the king of Babylon, and the rest of the population. But the captain of the guard left some of the poorest of the land to be vine dressers and farmers. Now the Chaldeans broke into pieces the bronze pillars of the Lord's temple, the water carts, and the bronze basin, which were in the Lord's temple, and carried the bronze to Babylon. They also took the pots, shovels, wicks, wick trimmers, dishes, and all the bronze articles used in the priest's service. The captain of the guards took away the fire pans and sprinkling basins, whatever was gold or silver. As for the 2 pillars, the 1 basin, and the water carts that Solomon had made for the Lord's temple, the weight of the bronze of all these articles was beyond measure. 1 pillar was 27 feet tall and had a bronze capital on top of it, the capital encircled by a grating, and pomegranates of bronze stood 5 feet high. The 2nd pillar was the same with its own grating. Captain of the guard also took away Sariah, the chief priest, Zephaniah, the priest of the 2nd rank, and the 3 doorkeepers. From the city he took a court official who had been appointed over the warriors, 5 trusted royal aides found in the city, the secretary of the commander of the army who enlisted the people of the land for military duty, and 60 men from the commoner people who were found within the city. Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guards, took them and brought them to the king of Babylon at Riblah. The king of Babylon put them to death at Riblah in the land of Hamath. So Judah went into exile from its land. King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon appointed Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, son of Shaphan, over the rest of the people he left in the land of Judah. When all the commanders of the armies, they and their men, heard that the king of Babylon had appointed Gedaliah, they came to Gedaliah at Mizpah. The commanders included Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, Johanan, son of Kareah, Sariah, son of Tenhumeth, the Netophathite, and the Jazaniah, son of Maccathite. They and their men, Gedaliah, swore an oath to them and their men, as assuring them, "Don't be afraid of the servants of the Chaldeans. Live in the land and serve the king of Babylon, and it will go well for you." In the 7th month, however, Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, son of Elishama, of the royal family, came with 10 men and struck down Gedaliah, and he died. Also they killed the Judeans and the Chaldeans who were with him at Mizpah. Then all the people from the youngest to the oldest, and the commanders of the army, left and went to Egypt, for they were afraid of the Chaldeans. On the 27th day of the 12th month of the 37th year of the exile of Judah's king Jehoiakim, in the year Evil-Merodach became king of Babylon, he pardoned King Jehoiakim of Judah and released him from prison. He spoke kindly to him and set his throne over the thrones of the kings were with him in Babylon. So Jehoiakim changed his prison clothes, and he dined regularly in the presence of the king of Babylon for the rest of his life. As for his allowance, a regular allowance was given to him by the king, a portion for each day for the rest of his life.